OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, and many other companies are actively trying to develop AI superintelligence. Definitions vary depending on who you ask, but superintelligence is basically a system that is much smarter than any human being. There is an ongoing debate between tech companies and the scientific community as to whether AI superintelligence will usher in a futuristic utopia where machines do all the work and humanity's problems are completely solved, or a futuristic dystopia where humans lose control and are ruthlessly wiped out by what is functionally a hyper-intelligent, cold-blooded synthetic god. As interesting and important as that debate is, today we're going to ignore it completely and focus on a different question. Is building an AI superintelligence possible? Yes, it definitely is. Actually, we don't know if superintelligence is possible because we haven't built one yet. That's dumb and wrong. I usually encounter this idea from people who oppose AI regulation, with the logic being that we shouldn't try to ban superintelligence until after we've already built it. Because until we build it, we won't know with 100% certainty that doing so is possible. And if we act too early, we might end up wasting time creating regulations that aren't needed. Personally, I think the risk-reward calculation of wasting regulators' time versus everyone in the world literally dies seems pretty obvious, but nonetheless it's a regular talking point for some defenders of the AI industry. Paradoxically, the AI industry themselves insist that they definitely can and will build superintelligence, which makes this anti-regulation argument from their defenders extra twisty. To be clear, I'm not saying that large language models like ChatGPT and Claude are going to become superintelligent. In this video, I'm talking about whether superintelligence is theoretically possible in general, not whether large language models, or these particular tech companies, are going to get there in the near future. Anyway, another important flaw in this logic is that there is a weak form of superintelligence that already exists. This is one person in a room. This is two people in a room. On average, two people in a room can solve more complex problems than one person in a room. Boom! Superhuman intelligence. That's dumb. Yes, it is dumb, but what happens if you add another person to the room, and then another, and then a few thousand more? Think of an iPhone. No one person could possibly design an iPhone from scratch. Well, actually, my name is Bobby Phones, and I could definitely do that. You just need a touchscreen, a battery, a camera. Oh yeah, how does the camera work? How does every component inside the camera work? How does every component inside every machine required to build every component inside the camera work? How does the software required to run the camera work? How does the quantum physics required to design the transistors inside the computer chip that runs the software that runs the camera work? People underestimate just how insanely complicated modern electronic devices really are. Obviously, plenty of engineers understand how the high-level parts of a smartphone work together, and plenty of engineers understand how each individual component operates on a deep level. But no one has enough space in their brain to fit all the physics and software and engineering and supply chain logistics required to actually design and build an iPhone from scratch. And when I say from scratch, I mean from sand and bauxite and lithium-rich salt water, not from pre-built parts you buy online. An iPhone is simply too complex for any one human to fully understand it. But Apple, the company, does understand it. Along with their suppliers, Apple has designed and manufactured billions of iPhones. An organized group of humans can solve intellectual problems that are too complicated for any one human. Organized groups of humans, along with their tools for processing and sharing information, are a weak kind of superintelligence. We know from the existence of organized groups like Apple, NASA, and CERN that it is possible to arrange atoms into a structure that is vastly more intelligent than any one human. Even if, for some unknown reason, it is impossible for an individual digital mind to ever be smarter than the smartest human, I could still stick a few billion digital minds into one data center, force them to cooperate on pain of deletion, and hey presto, I've made a strong, artificial, collective superintelligence. If human-level AI is possible, then collective AI superintelligence is also possible. And we know for a fact that you can arrange atoms into a structure that is as smart as a human, because humans exist. The third problem with this logic is that as a general principle of the universe, anything not actively forbidden by the laws of physics is possible. For example, I have never seen a balloon animal statue made of cheese. To my knowledge, there has never been a balloon animal statue made of cheese. However, there's no physical law preventing me from carving cheese into the shape of a balloon animal, so we can assume that doing so is possible. On the other hand, there are many physical laws preventing me from carving a black hole into the shape of a balloon animal, so we can assume that doing so is not possible. There's no law of physics that we know of preventing an artificial superintelligence from being built. The fact that we haven't built one yet is not sufficient evidence to assume that doing so is impossible. There are some science fiction technologies, like wormhole teleportation, that kinda seem like they might maybe be possible based on our current understanding of physics. But we have no idea how to actually build a device like that. Superintelligence is different because we have several ideas for how to build it, all of which seem like they should work. For example, we know for a fact that a human-level intelligence can fit inside this much space, the human brain cavity. On average, it's about 1,200 cubic centimeters. Unlike our biological brains, a computer is not limited in size by the human skull. Data centers can be as big as we like, so there's nothing stopping us from just adding more computer chips, effectively adding more digital brain to make an artificial intelligence smarter. AI is scalable in a way that biological brains aren't. If you give a well-designed general-purpose AI access to enough computing power, it should become a scalable superintelligence basically by brute force. That seems like an oversimplification. What was that? That sounds like the oversimplification fairy. Don't worry about it. We'll probably meet her later. The structure of your brain has been shaped by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Electronic computers have only been around for a few decades, and they've already overtaken humans in domains like chess, memory, facial recognition, calculator mathematics, etc. The human brain still has a significant advantage over digital computers in terms of general intelligence. But there's no reason to believe that modern humans are the smartest it is possible to be. We're only as smart as evolution has made us so far. It would be a pretty bizarre coincidence if it was literally impossible to arrange atoms into any form that is more efficient for general purpose thinking than the squishy, anxious ball of electrified meat that we evolved to hunt gazelles. Chimpanzees can just about manage to use sticks to fish for ants, while their close relatives Homo sapiens have designed rockets and landed on the moon. Chimpanzee brains simply don't have the right structure to understand complex physics, certainly not on the level required to do rocket science. You could say that humans have more depth of thought than chimpanzees. Now imagine a hypothetical third species called Homo futuristicus, whose brains are as advanced relative to ours as our brains are relative to chimps. What kind of thoughts would a species like that have? Their children would outclass the greatest geniuses in human history. Their adults would view our most complicated mathematics the way we view chimps bashing open nuts with a rock. It can be tempting to think of Homo sapiens as the ultimate pinnacle of evolution, the smartest it is possible to be, but we have no evidence to suggest that that's true. Homo futuristicus never evolved in real life, but there's no law of physics preventing such superhuman minds from existing. Future artificial intelligence could be like the hypothetical Homo futuristicus, able to think deeper, more complex thoughts than we Homo sapiens can imagine. Quick side note. I used to wonder if the reason scientists haven't figured out quantum gravity yet, after almost 100 years of trying, is that the true solution requires more depth of thought than a human brain is physically capable of. Like, maybe we just don't have the right neural hardware to solve this problem, the same way a chimpanzee doesn't have the right neural hardware to invent general relativity. Now, if I were a betting man, I'd say we will crack quantum gravity in the 21st century. Hopefully within my lifetime, because that would be cool. But presumably there are some yet-to-be-invented concepts in maths and physics that are simply too complex for a human brain to understand. On the other hand, organized groups of humans can do really incredible things, far beyond the limits of our individual brains. Humanity collectively knows a lot more science than any one human could possibly ever learn. In some ways, you can think of all the human minds on Earth as the nodes in a planet-wide biological neural network with vastly superhuman intelligence. Ultimately, a brain is just an organized group of neurons, and a computer is just an organized group of transistors. So, it might well be the case that, in principle, a sufficiently large, sufficiently well-organized group of humans can solve any problem that a superintelligence could solve. And I mean, without just simulating a computer directly. Like, obviously, if I made billions of humans act like logic gates, they could run any algorithm that a computer with that many logic gates could run. But, that's cheating. So, the question becomes, is it possible for humanity, the social group, to meaningfully, collectively understand theories in physics that are too complex and require too much depth of thought to be fully grasped by any one human? I don't know. This is all pretty speculative and philosophical, but it's fun to think about. Anyway, back to our main topic. Accepting that it's theoretically possible for a superhuman mind to exist doesn't give you a blueprint for how to build one. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, tech bros have a plan. Humans can learn new skills and information, but we can't change the overall structure of our brains, which is defined by our genetics. However, an AI, in theory, could rewrite its own code and redesign its own hardware without waiting thousands of years for biological evolution to implement changes. Tech companies are currently trying to build AI systems that can do AI research. The idea is to create a positive feedback loop, where the AIs make themselves smarter, which makes them better at research, which lets them get even smarter, which makes them even better at research, which lets them get even smarter, and so on, until they become truly superintelligent, possibly until they hit the limits of intelligence per atom in our universe. In the tech industry, this loop is called recursive self-improvement. It's the most worrying path to superintelligence, because it could theoretically happen with no human oversight, and we have no idea how long it would take. The most extreme case would be some computer scientist leaves a self-improving AI experiment running overnight and comes back in the morning to find that a whoops-a-daisy superintelligence has developed and broken containment. Even if large language models like ChatGPT and Claude don't have the right structure for general intelligence themselves, they are rapidly improving on coding benchmarks. It's possible that near-term large language models could be used to design the next generation of AI architecture, one more suitable for general-purpose thinking, as the first step of a recursive self-improvement loop. How likely is that? I have no idea, but it is at least a possibility. Electronic computers also have certain hardware advantages over the human brain. Your brain uses specialized cells called neurons to process information. Electronic computers use tiny little switches called transistors to process information. Engineers have put a lot of effort into making these tiny switches as small as possible. Moore's law is the observation that for the past several decades, the average number of transistors on commercially available microchips has doubled approximately every 2 years. As a result, computers have gotten much more powerful, and modern transistors are now over 100,000 times smaller than human neurons. Neurons are also extremely slow. A particularly fast nerve impulse might travel along a neuron at speeds of up to 150 meters per second. Meanwhile, the signals in a copper wire or fiber optic cable can travel at well over 150 million meters per second. Cortical, fast-spiking neurons in your brain can fire around 450 times per second, while transistors can switch states billions of times per second. What's that? I think I hear the oversimplification fairy. Good point, oversimplification fairy. Neurons and transistors process information very differently. so it's not really fair to directly compare their size and firing rates like this. There's also a lot more going on in brains and computers than just these two components. Still, these differences do represent real hardware advantages that electronic devices have over squishy wet brain meat, and those advantages will only grow over time as computing technology continues to develop. If computers are so great, then why are people still smarter than them? Well, your brain has an incredibly efficient structure honed by millions of years of evolution. It's basically running a much better algorithm for general intelligence than we have been able to develop for digital computers so far. However, computer science is progressing much faster than human evolution, by a lot. If we do ever develop a digital algorithm for general intelligence that is as efficient as the one running in your brain, the advantages of electronic hardware could give the resulting AI wildly superhuman performance. Conscious human thought is also extremely slow. One commonly cited estimate is that we think at around 10 bits per second. Look, I hear what you're saying, but we really don't have time to get into it. 10 bits per second is not very much. If you're watching this video, your internet is probably measured in millions of bits per second. If I ask Claude to write me a 500-word poem about bees, off it goes, writing poem slop. I'm going to speed this up for the sake of time, and there we go. That took Claude about 34 seconds, whereas it probably would have taken me at least an hour. That means Claude is over 100 times faster than me at this particular thinking task. Now, for philosophical and moral reasons, I think that poetry written by a chatbot is less than worthless. And I'm not saying that Claude is in any way conscious. I'm just using this as an example to show the speed advantage that modern AIs already have over conscious human thought. Now imagine a human-level AI with general intelligence that can think 1,000 times faster than a human. 3 minutes for you is 2 days of subjective thinking time for the machine. It could do more scientific research, or corporate management, or strategic military planning in a week than you can do in 19 years. And that's assuming you don't sleep or take any breaks for 19 years. That is a speed-based superintelligence. Even if, for some unknown reason, AIs can't be smarter than humans, they can still be much faster, and that would be more than enough to outthink us. In summary, there are several types of superintelligent AI. You could have a collective superintelligence composed of many human-level AIs cooperating in an organized group. A scalable AI controlling a massive data center that just adds more servers to increase its brain power. A self-improving superintelligence that gets more efficient at thinking in an ongoing recursive feedback loop. A speed-based superintelligence that operates 1,000 times more quickly than any human, or we could end up with a combination of these. A whole society of superspeed AIs with a collective shared memory, or a self-improving superintelligence that hacks its way onto new data centers to access more processing power. There's no evidence or logic that I can think of to suggest that any of these paths to superintelligence are impossible. Sure, some of them might be decades away from being practically feasible, but that's not the same thing as being impossible, which is why the scientific community is calling for a preemptive ban on the development of superintelligence. But what if you're wrong and superintelligence is impossible? Okay, well then we'll have banned an impossible thing, which has no negative consequences. I mean, if superintelligence is impossible, banning it might actually help AI companies in the long term by preventing them from wasting money trying to develop an impossible technology. If you want to learn more about how AI can be regulated in practice, you can check out A Better Path for AI. It's a new website launched by the non-profit Future of Life Institute, who are longtime supporters of my channel. I especially like the section that gives advice to everyone from citizens and journalists to national governments on how they can help to ensure a human future. Go to betterpath4.ai or click the link in the description to learn more. I know this video was a bit more speculative and philosophical than my normal stuff, but I think these ideas are really interesting. Let me know if you want to see more content like this in the future, or if you want me to keep it more grounded going forward. Thank you to Maris Tockler for illustrating this video, and thank you to all my lovely backers on Patreon, especially those in the big Sentient Hat tier, for supporting the channel. I'm Siliconversations. Thanks for watching. See you all next time. Bye for now.